Hello everyone, this is Pratik from TechStop, and today we'll be discussing about Azure App Configuration, and I'll give a demo like what is it and how we can use app configuration with Spring Boot application. So this would be the agenda for today's video. First, I'll introduce you to Azure App Configuration, like what's the importance of the service and why do we use it. Then we'll go and create one of the instance in Azure, and then we'll go through the Java SpringBoot project which I have configured for accessing the app configuration service in Azure. And lastly, we'll be going through two most important concepts. One is accessing the app configuration, and also how the auto refresh works, like if we update any property in the app configuration, how you will get the changes automatically into your application. And last one is how we will be using Spring profiles with app configuration. Okay, so let's switch to app configuration, the Azure portal now. So first I'll before moving to the portal, I'll just introduce you to what is app configuration. So Azure App Configuration provides a service to centrally manage application settings and features flags. So basically, you would have your application, you would have a configuration which is associated with your application, like any configuration like the backend URLs or the keys and any other configuration which your application might require at runtime. So you can keep it in your app Azure App Configuration, and you can then access it through your application at runtime. So, and this helps us implement one of the key recommendations from 12-factor app guide. So according to the 12-factor app guide, one recommendation is to keep the configuration separate from the code. So you keep your configuration in your app configuration service, and you keep your application code separately. So you manage those two things separately, so that you can change your configuration independent of your code, and you don't have to deploy your code again for making that app configuration changes effective. So that was the introduction, a small introduction to Azure App Configuration. Now let's move to the Azure portal. So from the list of Azure services, let me click on app configuration now. So I already have one app configuration already set up. I'll create a new one for you for this to demonstrate how we configure it. So let's create one of them. So first we'll select the resource group. I'll select the Pratik resource group, and I'll name it as app config, say 02. I think we have 01 already present. Pricing, I'll keep it as free one. Okay, I think we can only create one app configuration in the free tier. So let's do one thing. I'll move to the standard pricing tier, and next move to the network part. Keep the defaults as it is, and we straight away go to review and create. So the validation has passed, so let's create it. So let it create. I'll just pause the video and I'll come back once it gets created. So now we have the app configuration instance ready. So I was facing some issue with the previous instance creation, so I just I deleted the previous two instances and I created the new one with this Java app config name. So that's the app configuration page, and let's move to the access key section first. So to access the app config from your Java application, you will have to copy this connection string first. So let's copy it, and I'll just switch to the IDE first. So we have this application, the bootstrap properties present here, and these are the app configurations properties which are required to configure the instance in your Spring Boot application. I'll just copy it here, and I'll go through other configurations later. Let's move back to the app configuration instance. So this is the connection string which you have to use to access the app configuration instance, and then let's move to the configuration explorer. So this is where you configure your application properties. So let's create one of them. So we create a key value pair. Key is named as so by default there is a prefix which gets added, which you have to add to the key, which is /application / and there's a application level prefix we can use to segregate the app level application configuration properties from different application properties. So if I just write it as app config dot, I can write it as a property named message. Okay, and I'll just write a value of it. I'll just say you can consider it as a response message which I have to send back to my consumer, which I'm configuring the app configuration. So this is just an example. That's not a you can say a valid example, of the app configuration, but this is I'm configuring just for the demonstration purpose. So I'll just say hello world. Okay, and I'll come back to this label part later. So let's keep it as it is, and I'll just apply. Okay, so you now have your app configuration ready, the application configuration ready, so which you can access. And so this is the simple configuration which you have to do, like you configure all your configurations here and then you access those configurations through your application. So now let's move to the Java project which I have created. So this is the app config project which I have created. So there are different classes under different packages which I have created. So let's go through them one by one. First is the Azure App Configuration application, which is your entry point to your application, and in this I've enabled the configuration properties, and that is through a class called message config. So let's move to this class first, message config. So this is basically a class which represents all the configurations which would be read from the app configuration instance. So this is the prefix which I have configured here. So all the properties with the prefix config will be read into this class, but I think I have configured it in a different way. So it is app config. So let's move change it to app config now. And so app config is the prefix, and message would be the property name, the actual property name, which is same as this one. So this value should be read into this variable of the class. Then we have the controller class, wherein I have just exposed one get method on this endpoint API/v1/user just for demonstration purpose, and I've auto wired that message config class, and from that class we would be reading the message property which we have fetched from the app configuration, and will be sending that message back to the consumer, and the HTTP status will be set as OK. This application security is just to enable all the endpoints that it's an unprotected endpoint which we would be exposing. Then comes the application properties file, which only has the server port which is set to 9090, Then we have the bootstrap properties file, which is the most important one, and let me go through all the properties. So first one is the connection string, which we have already used, where we have copied the access keys from the app configuration instance. Then we have enabled the monitoring as well, like if say any property changes in the app configuration, that automatically gets changes gets reflected at the runtime. Then we have the triggers. So this one I have not configured yet, so let me configure it as well in the app configuration instance. So this is the trigger. So we will create a property with the name refresh count, and let me create it one. So we'll create a key with the name refresh count, and we'll set its value as 1. So it's like a trigger. So whenever say you change the value of this variable to something else, then it would be a trigger for the app configuration monitoring part, that it will come to know that the properties have changed, and it has to refetch all the properties values and make it available to the application at the runtime. And what would be the refresh intervals, like after how much time that the changes will get reflected? So that would be 2 seconds, which we have configured. By default it is 30 seconds. So these are all the properties which we have configured for the app configuration instance access, and also enabling the auto refresh functionality in our application. Okay, so that's the minimal configuration which we have to do to access the app configuration. And one more thing, so in the POM file, what we have configured is we have added this dependency, which is the Azure Spring Cloud App Configuration config web, which is the dependency required to access the app configuration and also to enable the auto refresh functionality. So that's the basic setup, Java SpringBoot application setup, which I have done. So let run this application, and one more thing. So I'll be going through that later, but yeah, if I go into the configuration part of the application, I have also enabled the profiles, which this is the concept which I'll be going through after demonstrating this simple use case of the app configuration. Let me remove it once, and I'll reconfigure it again. So let's start the application now. So I'll just pause it and come back when it has started. So now the application has started. Let me try to run it through the Postman. So this is the endpoint. Let me try to run it. So if you see here, I'm able to access that message which is configured in the app configuration, which says hello world. And so to demonstrate the auto refresh functionality, let me update the configuration in the portal. So let me update it. Let me change it to let me increase the exclamation signs, and as I said, the trigger point, let me update the value of this refresh count as well to say 2, and let me try to re-trigger it. So if you see here, after 2 seconds, so after 2 seconds the changes gets reflected automatically to the application. So that's the auto refresh functionality which we have configured. So you don't have to redeploy your application, you just have to change the configuration in your app configuration instance, and automatically those changes would be available to your application at runtime. That was the auto refresh functionality. So the last topic for this video would be how we would use the Spring profiles using the app configuration. So this is where the labels comes into the picture. So if say for the same property, I label it as okay. There is no way I can edit it. Let me create it again. Let me delete it and create it again with the label supplied. Okay, so the key name would be the same one, application / app config dot message. So this part is something which app configuration takes it by default. You can change it as well using some properties in your bootstrap properties file. And this one is the prefix which we have used in our configuration class. So the same value I'll put it here, but this time I'll say this property value is for the dev environment. This is for dev. Okay, and I label it as dev, and I just apply it again. Let me copy this value again. Okay, so this is for dev. Let me create for the prod. So in order to differentiate, like based on what profile is being enabled at the moment, the corresponding value will be picked at the runtime. So this is for prod, and I'll label it as prod. Okay, so I'll apply it again. So if you see the same, the property is same, but according to the labels we have different values being specified. So as of now there is no profile being applied to the application. Let me apply the profile and rerun the application. So let me modify the VM options. Let me apply the Spring profiles. Equal to dev. Okay, I apply it and click on OK. Let me restart the application. So you'll see the dev profile being applied and corresponding dev property would be read. And so if you see here, the profile active one is the dev profile, and let me try to access the message property. So this is for dev. Okay, let's say if I apply deploy the same application in the prod environment, so I just have to do is while deploying I have to change this profile to prod and redeploy it. So this time the output should be the value of the prod environment and not of dev. So this time profile is prod 1. So let me try to access it. Okay, this time you see the prod application, the prod value of the same variable. So this way you can implement the Spring profiles using the app configuration. So that's it for today's video. Hope you like the video. So let me know in the comment section how do you like, if you have any comments about it, and I'll be back with the new video soon. Till then, thank you.